All right, let's think a little bit about exponents. I'm going to take the number 2. I'm going to multiply it by 2. That's the same as 2 squared. And in fact, 2 is the same as 2 to the first power. If I take that number 4 and I multiply it by 2 again, that's 8. And that's the same as 2 to the third power. I'll do that one more time. 8 times 2 is 16. And that's the same thing as 2 to the fourth power. So one way to get higher and higher powers is to keep multiplying and multiplying by 2. So one of the things we can think about doing is going backwards from 2 to the fourth to 2 to the third by dividing by 2. 16 divided by 2 is 8. And then if we want to go backwards again, we can think of dividing by 2 as being the opposite of timesing by 2 each time. And 8 divided by 2 is 4. If we continue this pattern, dividing by 2 in each step, four divided by 2 is 2. So now let's suppose we want to go backwards one more step. If I'm going down this side, here's 2 to the fourth, 2 to the third, 2 to the second, 2 to the first. The next number down should be 2 to the 0 power. Now what number should we put over here? Well, if this pattern continues to work, we should be able to take that number and divide it by 2. So what is 2 divided by 2? Well, 2 divided by 2 is 1. So our guess is that 2 to the 0 power equals 1. Well, I have my calculator sitting right over here, so I'm going to try that. Let's take 2 and raise it to the 0 power. And the result is 1. So this thing seems to work. Well, okay, let's try a different one and see if it continues to work. So this time I want to use the number 5. So if I take 5 and times it by 5, it's 25. So we can think of 5 as being 5 to the first power, and 25 as being 5 squared. If I take 25 and times it by 5 again, I get 125. That's what I get with 5 quarters. 125 is 5 to the third power. And again, if we continue to multiply by 5, we can go up this table. It's kind of hard to multiply 125 by 5 in my head. I could do it over here. And that's 625. Since I've multiplied by another 5, that should be 5 to the 4th. Let's double check that one. Okay, so I trust my table here. So now let's go backwards. Remember again, going backwards means that on each step, instead of multiplying by 5, we'll be dividing by 5. So 625 divided by 5 should be 125. 125 divided by 5 should be 25. 25 divided by 5 should be 5. So to go back one more step, I want to do 5 divided by 5, which is 1. If I go backwards over here one more step, that should be 5 to the 0 power. Now again, I want to double check and see, is that really right? Is 5 raised to the 0 power equal to 1? Excellent. So it is equal to 1. Now several students might have guessed that anything to the 0 power would be equal to 0. But so far, 2 to the 0 power is equal to 1. 5 to the 0 power is equal to 1. So I'm going to make this huge leap that says any number at all, so we'll use a variable x, raised to the 0 power is equal to 1. And I'm going to make up a strange large number, 173, and raise it to the 0 power. And using this rule, I think that's going to be equal to 1. (173) raised to the 0 power equals 1. So it does work. Now you're going to do some practice with the 0 power, and most of your directions are going to say, do this without a calculator. So what I'd like you to do in the future when they say to do something without a calculator is to try and figure the answers out, and then when you're done figuring them out, use your calculator to check your work. So let's suppose we have some numbers like we've been practicing. 4 to the 0 power, about negative 2 to the 0 power, and negative 8 without parentheses to the 0 power. So let's think about what each of those would be. Using our rule, anything to the 0 power should be equal to 1. Now if we use this rule, even a negative number to the 0 power should equal 1. Then we get over here and we have to realize that because there's no parentheses, the 0 power is being applied only to the 8. It's almost like there's a brick wall in between because those two are not being connected. Well, if that's the case, then 8 to the 0 power is 1, and this negative sign is going to come down outside. So what you can do when you're doing these problems at home is try each one of these and see how we did. So 4 to the 0 power equals 1, and we know this one works. And then negative 2 in parentheses, so we write it exactly how we see it there. And then raise that to the 0 power. And that equals 1. So this one also works. Now the last expression was negative 8 without any parentheses, raised to the 0 power. And we can see that that answer is negative 1, and so it does match our answer over here. So definitely practice without the calculator and then use your calculator as a way of checking your work. It's easy to make little sign mistakes with exponents, so it's nice to have a way to check your answers right away.